Hello everyone, welcome to an unprecedented event in the history of world chess has taken place. A 4-year-old prodigy named Misha Osipov challenged Yuri Averbakh, a legendary grandmother who was 95 years old at the time. The game was played in front of a large audience of chess fans. Misha was already known as a chess prodigy at the age of 3, an age when most people believe children can barely distinguish chess pieces, let alone play a real game. Yet this very child had previously forced former world champion Anatoly Karpov to agree to a draw 3 times in simultaneous exhibitions. Meanwhile, Yuri Averbakh needs no introduction to chess enthusiasts. He's one of the most influential figures in modern endgame theory, earned the grandmother title at the age of 30, defeated countless elite players, won the Soviet championship, and represented the Soviet Union in major international tournaments. Default text at 95 years old, with failing eyesight and trembling hands, he was the oldest active grandmother in the world, with a peak ELO rating of 2,455, a level that would rank him among the top players even in many countries today. In this game, Misha played white, while Averbakh played black. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, don't forget to do so, and click the bell icon to receive notifications about the latest chess games featuring top grandmasters. Okay, let's start the match. The young boy Misha opens the game by pushing the pawn to e4, and almost instinctively Averbakh responds by pushing the pawn to c5, choosing the Sicilian defense to fight back. We can clearly see that Averbakh is already very old. He has to bend down, his eyes almost pressed against the board, just to see the position clearly. On Misha's side, the 4-year-old plays with great confidence, developing the knight to f3 and taking control of the center right from the opening. Black develops the knight to c6, and white immediately pushes the pawn to d for 2c's central space. Black captures the pawn on d4, white recaptures with the knight on d4, and black quickly brings another knight to f6, launching an immediate counterattack in the center. White develops the second knight to c3, defending the pawn on e4. Black should reinforce with the pawn to d6, but noticing that black has left a diagonal exposed, white immediately plays the bishop to b5, putting pressure on the knight on c6. Black defends by developing the bishop to d7. An exchange breaks out around the c6 square, and black uses a pawn to recapture, winning material in the process. Even though he is only 4 years old, the Russian prodigy's moves are remarkably mature, no different from those of top grandmasters. Misha retreats his bishop to c4, continuing to control the center. Black pushes the pawn to e6, opening the diagonal for the bishop on f8. Understanding the importance of early castling in the opening, Misha castles quickly, bringing his king to safety. Black follows the plan by developing the bishop to e7, while white brings the rook to e1, centralizing forces and preparing for a breakthrough. Seeing this, black does not dare to stay in the center for long and castles, moving the king to the corner. White develops the bishop to d2, bringing more pieces into the game, and black responds by placing the rook on e8, concentrating forces for a central battle. Finding no obvious weakness in black's position, white develops the bishop to f4, coordinating with the queen to attack the pawn on d6. Under pressure, black pushes the pawn to d5 to strike back in the center. White captures on d5, black recaptures on d5, attacking the bishop, and white retreats the bishop to d3, shifting attention toward the king side and waiting for a chance to attack. With the bishop gone from its original square, black brings the queen to b6, targeting the weakness on b2. White responds by pushing the pawn to b3, stopping the attack, but this move weakens the dark squares on white's queenside. In his younger days, Averbakh would surely not have missed this chance to play the bishop to b4, attacking the knight. White would then have to move the bishop to e5 to defend the knight on c3, allowing black to bring the rook to c8 and coordinate with the bishop to trap that knight. White would defend with the queen to d2, after which black could jump the knight to g4, attacking the bishop on e5 that is defending the knight on c3. If white then pushed the pawn to a3 to attack the bishop, Black could capture the knight on c3 with the bishop. White would recapture on c3. Black would take that bishop with the rook on c3. White would capture the queen on c3. And black would then play queen takes f2 with check, forcing the king to run to h1, followed by the queen moving to f4 and threatening checkmate on h2, leaving white in serious trouble. However, at nearly 100 years old, Averbakh seems to be playing more by instinct than by deep calculation. He hurriedly moves the rook to c8 to attack the knight, but white immediately recognizes the danger and retreats the knight to e2, correcting the weakness in time. Missing his opportunity, black develops the bishop to c5, coordinating with the queen to attack the pawn on f2. Despite being only 4 years old, Misha remains calm and steady. Simple attacks and obvious traps cannot fool him. White brings the rook to f1 to defend. Pressing forward, black pushes the pawn to e5, attacking the bishop, and white retreats the bishop to g5. Black continues by pushing the pawn to e4, attacking the bishop again, and at this moment the 95-year-old grandmother appears to have taken control of the position. Still, Misha defends stubbornly and quickly captures the knight on f6. Black captures the bishop on d3, and now white cannot simply move the bishop on f6, because black would push the pawn to e2, attacking both the queen and the rook. Forced by the position, white captures on d3, and black captures the bishop on f6. In our view, black should have used the queen to capture on f6 in order to avoid doubled pawns and keep a stronger defensive structure around the king. Even while down material, Misha does not give up. He brings the queen to f3, watching and waiting. Black retreats the bishop to f8, planning to move it to g7 to form a defensive shield for the king. White captures the pawn on f6 without noticing that black's queen is standing on b6. Perhaps the queen was simply too far away for Averbakh to see, which is understandable at nearly 100 years old, or perhaps he was deliberately allowing the child to continue. Averbakh then develops the bishop to g7, attacking the queen and launching a skewer that also threatens the rook behind it. Escaping by the narrowest margin, Misha quickly trades queens on b6. Black recaptures and white moves the rook to c1, both retreating and defending the pawn on c2. Out of habit, grandmother Averbakh captures the pawn on c2 with his rook and does not pull back in time. Misha immediately captures that rook on c2. From a position of advantage, Averbakh loses a rook to a careless mistake and suddenly finds himself down in both material and pawns. He brings the bishop to e6 to defend and stabilize the position, and shortly afterward he stops the clock, resigns the game, and shakes hands with 4-year-old Misha amid thunderous applause from the audience. And just like that, the 4-year-old prodigy Misha defeats the legendary grandmother Averbakh, rated 2,455 elo. It is simply unbelievable. If you found this game interesting, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to watch the latest chess games. Thank you, and see you next time.